thank the gentleman. I now recognize the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Cline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Acting Attorney General. I was hopeful that we would get into some oversight over the array of areas of the Department of Justice that are so critical and so important to addressing the problems that are facing my community: drugs, crime. All of these issues are of top concern to my constituents. And one of the most important things that I hear about when I get back to my district is, are you going to keep the government operating? Can you reach an agreement on immigration issues? So when we talk about immigration, I can ask you a couple of questions that would probably help get to an immigration agreement. The backlog of pending cases in immigration courts nationwide have been growing exponentially since 2008, from fewer than 200,000 cases in 2008 to more than 800,000. And Border Patrol is currently apprehending almost 50,000 aliens each month, a certain percentage of which ends up in that same pending case backlog. And in the face of this backlog, what steps is DOJ taking to ensure that its immigration judges can efficiently and effectively adjudicate cases and reduce this backlog of pending cases in a fair and efficient manner?
Thank you, Congressman. This is an important issue to the Department of Justice, and our immigration judges work hard every day to adjudicate those cases. But quite frankly, the number of immigration judges we have been overwhelmed by the number of asylum seekers. Over 80% and really over 90% of those that are encountered at the border and detained and arrested claim some form of asylum. Ultimately, that causes those folks to be put into the immigration court system, and then requires that a hearing be held by an immigration judge. And meanwhile, most of these folks, those 800,000 that are pending, are not part of the detained docket. They are part of the released docket. And those cases take longer, the ones that are not detained, the non-detained docket, and they have caused, since 2008, that number to go dramatically up. What we have done about that situation is General Sessions and I have issued Attorney General orders changing some of the specifics as to how those cases are adjudicated. And in addition, we have, together with the help of Congress, which you've authorized and funded more immigration judges, we've put a dramatic number of more judges, especially to the areas where it's needed, which is oftentimes at the border.
So you've also put in place an additional performance metric to gauge the performance of judges working to complete cases and reduce the backlog. Are those working? And you've gotten pushback from groups who are concerned that they amount to case quotas. And if they are working, are you aware of any organization in which productivity of its workers isn't assessed as one part of a multidimensional performance review?
Yes, in fact, government-wide, where there are administrative law judges similar to our immigration judges, there are typically performance metrics that are in place to not only evaluate their productivity, but also to budget and manage that workforce.
And what are you doing to ensure that continuances in immigration cases are not abused and are granted solely for good cause?
We issued an Attorney General order which set the standard, which had been different based on what the Immigration Appeals Court, which is an internal, the Board of Immigration Appeals, which is an internal DOJ body that the Attorney General sits over. We've passed rules and regulations and a new standard for issuing those continuances for good cause, as you mentioned.
All right, thank you. I yield back.